So welcome everybody to the NOFA New Jersey Organic Open House. Our intention here is to provide a space for our community to check in with NOFA New Jersey and talk about organic management practices, whatever organic means to you, whatever questions you have about it. So we have a nice treat today because we're going to get a little report about a farm transitioning to organic management practices as part of a grant that's ongoing. So we're going to have some good information presented, which will give us something to talk about afterwards. But also everybody that joins us is welcome to share at that point any questions they have or comments or discussion topics about organic. So my name is Mike Rassweiler. I'm the owner operator of North Slope Farm, also the president of the board of trustees for NOFA New Jersey. And I'll be sort of facilitating the meeting, trying to draw you out, asking questions. If I haven't heard from you, please feel free to ignore me if you like. So I'll just maybe I'll call on you just to keep it moving for the introductions, and then I'll turn it over to our guests to introduce themselves and their topic. And Devin, I'll start with you. Oh, I'm sorry. So when you introduce yourself, really just simply, your first name. If you'd like to introduce your business or what you do, please use your full name. Please feel free to include that in a chat, on the side so people can access it. Because this is a networking opportunity. You're welcome to share information about your organization. We want to connect everybody. But for the simple purposes of introduction, maybe just share what it is about organic or NOFA New Jersey that brings you here today. Devin.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I'm Devin. I'm a small farmer. I'm addicted to food and the executive director of NOFA New Jersey. I came on board in 2022. And what I love most about NOFA is, represented in even this meeting. It's like we're just a community hub. I mean, we're not just a community hub, but we really serve to connect so many different organizations and individuals and producers and consumers, and just a community catalyst for local food systems. And I think that's really important. I'm just going to go ahead and go down the screen. Christina.
Christina from 360 EarthWorks, and an organic land care consultant since 2016, but have transitioned the last actually 3 or 5 years towards more ecological restoration, specifically agricultural land and forests. And I'm very grateful to have become a member of NOFA back in, I think, 2018-19, and they had some powerful speakers, which really just opened up whole other doorways for me to explore the possibilities, and that's kind of why we're here today. And I'm sorry to say I have a partner project lead, Martha and Kimberly, on this farm, and we'll be talking about that later, our project grant by the Highlands Council in partnership with NOFA.
Virginia.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Virginia Lamb, Groundwork Education and Consulting. A longtime NOFA supporter and member, and as someone I met at a gathering recently said, I just really love farmers. So I do a lot of work with organics management and soil health, and just looking to, like Christina said, sort of see the opportunities for farmers to benefit from ecologically restorative practices.
Sharonda. And then Kelly.
Hello again. Thank you. Hello again. My name is Sharonda Allen. I'm the founder and executive director of Operation Grow Inc., where we deal with human, economic, social, and environmental sustainability. I'm also a steering committee member for NJ Peak, the EJ co-chair for Tri-County Sustainability, and the chapter co-chair for the Greater New Jersey Gateway Climate Reality Project. And I have some of my young people texting me right now. They're in school and they're like, oh, Ms. Sharonda, we got to meet today. because we are preparing for our second annual gala this Monday, and they love being with me for my Operation Grow Youth Sustainability Program. This year, our major focus is on food sovereignty, but we've also learned a lot about offshore wind because I do a lot of training. I've gone to oceanic trainings and a lot of other organizations. I also went to Montclair State for the hydrogen training last week. Steve Sweeney tweeted me, which I was like so shocked, and gave me a shout out. But I've been growing food with young people for a long time. Back in 2017, in my social studies class at growing, hydroponics and aquaponics, we did comparative growth studies on mini sweet peppers and what was one of the most feasible ways to grow them. And we did taste comparisons. And of course, the soil was more viable because the stems were, stronger, and the peppers were sweeter. And I got all the kids addicted to mini sweet peppers. So I've been doing this a long time. I've been trained by Youth Service America back in 2009 to do service learning, and I continue to do service learning with young people. And I'm excited about more of what we've done, as far as the young people. People ask me, how do I recruit? And I'm like, I don't. The kids bring their friends. And I'm really excited about that. And I love NOFA because I think it's important to highlight organic growing methods. I used to take my daughter to Disney World all the time, and one of my favorite places at Disney is at Epcot in the Future World, and it's the other park from World Showcase, and they have the sea and they have the land. If you go into the land, they have a really cool tour of the hydroponics and the aquaponics and the fish farms. And it shows really cool organic growing methods, these like pygmy wasps that eat the aphids and different things. And so I've always been so like excited about that. So I'm just grateful for other people who are, getting more information about organic agriculture. Sorry, I took a long time, but
No,
glad
that's
to
great. Thank you, Sharonda. So
Thank
Kelly,
you.
we'll put you up next, and then Logan, you'll be after Kelly.
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Kelly Pena. I am, I guess, co-leading a community garden in East Orange, New Jersey. And we're in the beginning stages of, getting everything organic, trying to, switch over, getting soil tested. We have, it's a little hard. I think I had spoken like a couple of weeks ago when, I first came onto the, the Zoom call about, just trying to get funding and stuff like that from like different locations. So that's new to me, the grants and stuff. But as far as with the garden, like this year is kind of like a test. We're growing, everything and anything that we can in the beds and see, what does well, because, the end goal is bringing fresh, organic vegetables to the community. And, it's hard to get volunteers. I'm glad that we have a good 6 of us, that is there, and it's a nice, piece of property. The other thing is, we also have bees, which is going to be great because last year I got free bees, and, they swarmed in, and, and basically, we, our, motto there is we let the garden talk to us. So, the bees heard and said, hey, this is the place to be. They came, and we have, I think, like 5 hives, which, we got 2 swarms, this spring.
Wow.
So, yeah, so right now we're looking to donate, 2 hives, to someone, so that this way, we're within the standards of, having the 3 hives. But, that's also part of it, providing, fresh honey, to the community as well. So, and it's all a learning process for, for us.
Thanks, Kelly. Sharonda, go ahead.
Yeah, Kelly, I live in East Orange.
So Wine and
I'm
Street
like,
Gardens.
I'm sorry,
Wine and Street Garden?
you said what
It's
street?
Wine and Street Community Garden.
Oh,
That's the
we need to
location.
talk. We need to
Okay.
talk. I'm gonna put my cell phone number in the chat for everybody, but Kelly, please, let's talk right after this meeting, please. Thank you.
Absolutely. I would definitely. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Cool.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
a teenage whisperer. We're gonna make it happen. Thanks.
Thank you, Kelly. And Logan, would you be happy to? Yeah, great. And then
Hi.
Rajani next.
Hi, I'm Logan. I do outreach, office admin, and kind of a little bit of everything at Fairground Farm. We are in Hopewell, New Jersey. We are an organic certified farm that really, is focused on sustainability, our CSA program, and local produce. I'm sure some of you guys might know my boss, Erin, but we're trying to kind of expand what we have going on here. And on a personal level, I'm somewhat new to the agricultural world, so I'm just really excited to learn more about the process of organic growing and sustainability. But yeah, just excited to be here today and to learn a bunch of new stuff. Thanks.
Cool.
Sorry, my camera doesn't work.
No worries. Welcome. Rajani.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Rajni. I live in Monroe, New Jersey. I'm a certified soil food web lab technician. I used to do IT job, and now that kids are on their own, I'm transitioning to my lifelong passion. I'm a farmer's daughter, grew up in India. I have a couple of acres in India from my father, and I do guava plantation there and vegetables. And here I have a half-acre backyard, and I've been gardening all my life. That's
That's
pretty much.
awesome. Thank you for joining us. Melanie.
Hi, I am a first generation farmer with my husband. We have a small farm called Fluffy Farms down in South Jersey that consists of 20 goats and about 30 chickens. And we do vegetables, no spray, with companion planting and cut and what's trap crops in 20 garden beds. And I also do sourdough bread, so I grow the produce and I put it in the bread, and then I sell the bread that way. And we're working on dairy, and we do
Melanie, I think you might have stopped. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
You do
We
dairy
missed
and
we missed what you do.
oh,
But
okay.
the last little bit.
About the dairy, after the
Yeah.
dairy. Oh, so we currently are in progress of using the animals to start regenerative farming here. So we have a silvopasture grant to turn 5 acres to turn that soil, the sandy soil, into something more fertile.
Cool. Can I ask you, since you look like you're outside, are you at the farm? Can you just do a 360 turn? So we can-
Sure, it's a mess.
It's
Yeah.
great to get the perspective. Thank you.
And then the goats are right under there.
Okay.
If you could see, I don't know. Yeah.
Thanks, Melanie.
Yeah. Working
Hey.
farm. You're welcome.
Megan? Yeah, great.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Sorry, I'm in transit, so I'll keep the video off for now. But so I'm an extension educator with Penn State, and I'm located in the Lehigh Valley, so very close to the New Jersey border. And I work with vegetable farmers, well, throughout the state, but obviously mostly in Lehigh Valley and Southeast PA. And a lot of my work focuses on more organic and sustainable practices. I also do a lot of work with new and beginning farmers, and I love NOFA, and really just I'm excited to hear more about what's going on with my neighbor.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. I think we got everybody, right? So Devin, maybe I could ask you to introduce the our presentation for today.
Absolutely. So we've got a really exciting and, how do I put this, enigmatic project, in my opinion, and it's really hard to even summarize in a mouthful. But what we have are some farmers in Hunterdon County here who not inherited a piece of land, but they've taken over the stewardship of a piece of land that had been farmed conventionally and extractively for a number of years. And I won't steal your thunder here, Christina. It's an interesting opportunity to show out and display how different regenerative and conservation practices, how they translate on the ground in a variety of settings, all on one farm. And what we're hoping to do is really take this and let it inform future stewardship, future regeneration, and also just how, nonprofits and individual farms can work together to promote good work. So without taking away your whole presentation, Christine, I'll pass it on to you, and feel free to share screen. And if we can help on the back end, just let us know.
All right. Forgive my technical limitations here. I said, okay, so
and we also have to give a shout out to Highlands for sure.
Yes, for sure, because they are the source, right? So let me see if I can do this right. If I'm sharing my whole desktop, I should be able to get. Let's see, there's my Zoom. Let's get to here. And let's go back to why we're here. All right, so thanks everyone. I'm so happy to hear literally, I feel blessed that there's a diverse group of people on this call, because that's, there's another operation already going, Operation Grow. And, I feel like in some way we all need to be performing operations. It's sort of critical, like in an emergency room, sometimes you feel like you have to really almost react rather than respond, because we're all feeling the need to do some changes, and in some cases, those changes are really incremental and slow, and others, people have their hair on fire and they're like, I got to do this now, so we had the opportunity, and I say we, meaning Christina being myself, the project coordinator. I started working with a farmer named Martha, who was on this call earlier, but she can't pull herself together. She actually had a slight accident with ethanol yesterday, and she thought she could try to pull it together, but she couldn't. So Martha is represented in this homepage. She's an artist, a potter, all kinds of people who, she has a jack of all trades. She's a CIA trained chef. She became a market gardener because she was concerned nutrition was not in the food. She really had a soft spot for children and working with children and gardens and how did they get more nutritious food. That's how she started. But she created this visual presentation for our funders, which are the Highlands Council. And so in general, it's a farm trial project to navigate the soil restoration road. It is her experience. Growing in New Jersey was so challenging. She's a native to Hudson Valley. And in Hudson Valley, the communities, the schools, the farms, they had a very integrated program. And so as a chef, she just came naturally to building relationships with farmers. And when she moved here, she had a very different experience. And so as fate would have it, despite the many attempts of maybe leaving New Jersey, she, rather than running, she kept leaning in and asking questions. Why is it so hard to grow nutritious food here? Why is everybody farming conventionally in communities that have some of the most amazing resources to do something different? So with those questions and a lot of trial and error, her CSA didn't take off like she'd hoped. Her relationships with wholesalers, through climate change and the extremes of some of the production issues, every single obstacle she hit, she and thankfully the landowners kept encouraging her to keep going. And I got involved in 2019 to say, why is this so hard? And thank goodness NOFA provided some really inspiring leaders in organics and in tradition and transitions and soil health. And I started researching and meeting great people at these open house events and on these farm tours. And this is what led to this project. I hope that's not a long way of saying a big thank you, but really it's about partnerships. And so this partnership was possible. Thankfully, NOFA applied for the grant to the Highlands Council, and they saw the need because they have a whole region that is losing its farm viability. So they want to invest in investigative research as to how do we keep our farmers farming? What tools can we give our farmers as a hand up to remedying some of the problems that were caused long before people got to farm the land? You know, that's a problem. You're inheriting a lot of historically bad management processes. So the Provenance Farm, you saw the symbol of the bee. I couldn't help but notice the beehives. Bees came to the community garden and connected you. They knew what you said, let the garden talk to you. Well, that's how Martha has led this exploration, is let the land lead me, even if it's painful at times. You know, why is the imbalance impacting yields? So with that, we applied to a grant, and interestingly enough, this grant, this particular funder had a study that said, oh, you know, very broad terms, let's do sustainable land management and innovative practices and research. So we were the perfect fit for that because we'd had so many troubles and trials. We could collectively inventory all the challenges and say, listen, we have to find out why. So really the big mission for us is really experimenting with old tried and true practices. That's what's so interesting about letting the land lead, is the land can restore itself, but we, you know, obviously have an agenda, and we need to produce, we need to make the land viable. So how do we build this partnership? And that's why we wanted to do it specific to small scale regional farms and market gardens. Not it doesn't have to be a large tract of land at all, but the basic principles are very simple, is that solar energy is available to capture into soil, and if you have at least partial or continuous cover, you should be able to rebuild your soil. You don't necessarily need grazing livestock. We have tapped into the magic of the soil food web and some of the specialists that work with compost, vermiculture, and other things. There'll be people on this call too that have a lot of experience with that. But we also found the biggest concern farmers had, and this particular farm had, is water is coming down in sheets much more frequently in larger amounts. And why is the soil unable to hold the water? And we've sort of compaction and overworking the soil has crushed the soil's ability to be a natural reservoir to retain that water. And then there's some other things. Obviously, carbon storage is a big issue, but we hope if we continue to be funded, we'll be able to explore that on the latter half. Right now, our main goal is to restore the soil and to increase the nutritional uptake of the plants, because apparently, according to most of the soil specialists we've talked to, the earth has everything you need underneath it. So working with Mother Nature is far more profitable for all rather than against it. I know most of the people on this call know that, but what we're interested in is having conversations with not just those who know that, but those that might be curious about it, but don't trust it, don't want to take the leap of faith, and maybe trial in small incremental ways, that we don't know what we don't know. You know, I think that's the safe place to start with us, because the landowners didn't know that the history, 90 years of history on their 160 acres had actually created a huge deficit, right, of problems, depleted soil bank, but also a numerous other host of problems with the surrounding environment. And so they wanted to find out, well, gosh, if we didn't know this, everyone else is doing conventional farming around us. Why don't we start with, we don't know what we don't know, and continue the why. So our biggest conversation starter for this presentation is soil versus dirt, because as you know, what you grow in and all those delicious vegetables you make is not grown in dirt, it's grown in soil. However, so many landowners that could make a difference and build partnerships with farmers for longer term leases, they don't know this. You know, they don't know that if a farmer is going to restore the soil, they need a 5 to 10 year lease at minimum. And so these are things we want to advocate for in this stewardship trial, is land access to, you know, to long-term land access. So Martha put together this presentation in a very simple way, to have, you know, people understand that yes, rain falls, and how is that a problem for clean water? Because it's a fundamental thing that a lot of people don't know when they're beginning to assess a piece of land. And we were shocked that a second generation farmer that we worked with on this land, he has had a history of success in a different soil, but he was trialing different kinds of cover crops, just dabbling. We encouraged him to dabble. And the minute it didn't work, he just said it's bad soil. And we said, well, wait a minute, what do you mean? And he said, it's just, it's dirt, you know, it's not workable. And we said, wait, don't give up yet. And, you know, these were cover crops, all this funding for cover crops. We were so excited as second generation farmer was going to break out of some conventional thinking. And immediately he didn't want to do it. So we had to say, okay, let's find out more. And so we put this slide homepage together to basically share that with people that are beginning to understand that there is no organism or structure in dirt. You know, the nutrients are moving off and away, and erosion is increasing. So these are very basic ideas that we're hoping to encourage curiosity with some of the beginner growers that are doing a lot of tilling, and they may want to incorporate cover crops, and how they could do that and still you know, create their own fertilizers on farm, as well as building structure in the soil so they're not going to have as many water problems. We've had some calls from people who said, if you're going to put this webinar series together, we want to know, what are we going to do with all this water that's coming, you know, and how do you manage that? So that's part of our trials, is to show how building soil structure will help resolve some of the water problems. So in short, this is our project described in very basic terms, that it's Providence Farms is a 160 acre former cropland, pasture, and forest leased long-term, what we call from patrons of farming. That's landowners that want to help farmers learn and fail forward on their land. And when I mean fail, meaning like you take what didn't work and carry it with you to investigate what potentially could work. And that's really to foster an education on the importance of soil restoration through various stewardship. But important to note, on our farm trials, we also have a family garden, which is scaled to a community garden. And, you know, that transition started in 2017. So, you know, hopefully with these webinars, we'll be able to build up to an on-farm workshop in the fall, and you'll be able to see, you know, things in various states, like things restoring itself versus things accelerated with compost and compost teas, and areas that are completely restored by seeding back into pasture because the soils were never suited to be tilled until we did our deeper soil investigative testing. So the 8 trial plots are spread out over this acreage, but interesting to know, you know, everyone said, oh my gosh, this is large scale. No, half the farm is forested. So that's a really important piece that we try to incorporate. Doesn't matter what scale you're at, that you're going to have, you know, what we call a let be area, whether it's a native shrub row of raspberries or a couple of fruit trees, you know, a community of plants that you can let be, that are going to help attract all the beneficial organisms that we're looking for in a diversified farming experience. Doesn't matter what size. So out of this farm, which is at the bottom of the Highlands planning area, we hope to have people pepper us with as many questions as possible through this webinar series. You know, what is important to our local farmers? What do they care about? What are their biggest challenges? When did they want to throw in the towel and say, why am I doing this? I can't go on any further. Because those are the kinds of questions that our consultants love. We did step out of state last year to try to get a bigger view with a very, you know, internationally known organization called Understanding Ag. That was made possible by a grant from RC&D and the Regenerative Steering Committee. And they said, you know, this is great. Tap into some of these farmers who transitioned for economic reasons. They didn't transition for ecological reasons. The founder of that company, who's now featured in a major motion picture called Common Ground, he fell into regenerative farming purely because he literally couldn't keep farming economically. And so for economic reasons, they've done a lot of research to show that farming is far more profitable in with using these regenerative practices. So their principles we'll be using throughout this trial and its context, you know, knowing where you are in New Jersey and what type of history is on that ground, and what kind of disturbance has been there and what you intend to disturb in the future. We're not against tilling at all. It's a matter of strategic tilling. And, you know, as farmers know, they're very complex thinkers, farmers have to be, to do organics already. So they're already multitask individuals where have talent to incorporate all of these ways to feel into what the land needs, what the weather is saying, what the insects are saying. So their principles, soil health principles, talk about planned disturbance. It's not no disturbance. And armoring the soil, which is a very popular word for them. They use armor because they don't want to see soil uncovered ever. They want it throughout the entire year, and they're in the Dakotas, so they're much cooler than we are. So we have a lot more benefits in New Jersey to keep the ground covered even through winter. And that's done through a diversity of land and plants and animals so that we can have those living roots. And depending on your circumstances, you could have both livestock or compost. We have the trial set up for both because we understand that most people don't necessarily want to dive right into livestock, although I'm really happy to hear Fluffy Farms has got 4-legged and 2-legged winged creatures going. So, you know, those stacked enterprises obviously are the old way to regenerate land. I mean, this is all the literature that's out there, but how do we do it from a beginner's perspective of, wow, how do you start on a small scale and scale up slowly? And that's what Martha is. You know, she's what we call it, like a, you know, the state calls it historically underserved. I like to call it second chance farming. You know, you have another life and another opportunity, but she's also very interested in people who have, you know, learning disabilities or people that have perceived limitations. We have an intern from South Africa who's new to the country on a visa. And so he's got a new set of eyes to help guide us as to how do you see things? What's your perspective in these soil health principles? So this homepage will be available and we'll build upon it. So we'll hope that it can be a resource for people to ask questions at the technical meetings or at the webinars that we'll be hosting. Devin will be unrolling that series of talks at the weekly newsletter, and we'll start getting into the specifics of each of our tools. You know, okay, here's this international consultant's idea of context, but how can we make this context relevant to you by showing how our baseline soil tests indicated our soil wasn't breathing. You know, that was kind of a shocker for the landowners and even for the second generation hay farmer that thought he was getting a bumper yield off of the hay field. He thought it was his best horse hay field. And, you know, our consultants are saying it's at 40%. And he's like, you got to be kidding, you know? So again, checking out, maybe diversifying and looking deeper into just how bare that soil is. We'll show you how to do those kinds of preliminary and simple tests. You don't need a lot of money and a lot of extra help from off the farm. So I see a raised hand. I'm just going to leave this slide up because it is pretty much what I hope we can talk about if there are any questions.
I have a question if you're available to answer. So we just installed a greenhouse, and the soil is in the ground. And I was curious, would it be possible to throw the goats in there to kind of like improve it? Like, how would we go about throwing the goats to graze the green? Is that something that's possible? Because I was thinking cover crops, but then I was like, oh, well, maybe the animals can do something to help.
Right. So Martha, so you just, as if I understood you correctly, you established a high tunnel?
Yes, a high tunnel.
Okay, and it's
What's the site?
new.
What's the
It's
house?
relatively new.
It's brand new. It's very, it's pretty large, so the animals would have a lot of space to roam.
Yeah,
30
Martha,
by what?
that's a question I'm gonna defer. When Martha, she had her chickens in last year and then this year, but she actually brought a few cows in, which
Wow.
I thought was a little risky, but she did, and she's going to be putting tomatoes in there this year. So this is a perfect question. If I could have like what we call, I use the road to restoration. I use these really corny metaphors called, I'm going to put that question in the parking lot because I'm going to take your information and ask Martha, you know, when did she put the chickens in? How often? You know, goats, I'm sure, are a lot more, or sheep, you said, manageable than cows. Yeah, but I know that
they're small, and they're small too. So I was thinking maybe even if we plant a cover crop that they could graze, that's something that I was thinking too.
Absolutely. That is a wonderful idea. And the key thing I know, and again, Devin, help me out here. I know that a lot of people get a little twitchy around manures and organics because there's a waiting period in terms of the cycling. And that's, we have to, you know, in terms of food, you know, when you actually grow in and that's an answer we can easily get you, but I have to ask Martha a little more specific. She would have been on the call, but she's, you know, nursing that eye that had ethanol
Okay.
on it. So can you share your information in the chat so that I can email you? And again, that, you know, we have a consultant that we're working with who's really serious about stacking operations. I mean, he's intense about like high tunnels and moving animals all around and engaging in wholesale use of that manure. And also with the trampling effect of your animals, like there's planned disturbance does open up a native seed bank that we are just beginning to understand. Like we thought, oh gosh, disturbance and compaction of hooves and on these soils, we're so scared. And all of a sudden there's all this new vegetation coming back that we haven't seen before that is grazing for the animals. So this is all very new to us. We're really excited at the possibility of it.
Oh, sounds great. Yes, I would love to be put in touch.
Good. I'm gonna grab that.
Christina, that was an excellent presentation. Thank you so much. Are you at the end of your presentation? We'll open it for questions.
Yeah, that was just, I just left the open screen in case there's something that, you know, touched somebody about some of the words were being used here.
I want to invite anybody to just go ahead and speak up. Don't worry about being called on. If you have a question or comment.
I have a question. So Christina, could you talk again a little bit about the treatments? I know you talked about Let It Be, and you talked about teas and compost and cover crops. So, because there are 8 trial plots, right? So could you break that down a little bit?
Yeah, well, we are just in the process of that. So we had the consultants
Okay.
come out and do the site assessments.
Okay.
And I should mention, this is built upon an NRCS conservation plan. So just from going backwards to go forwards, NRCS created a conservation plan that identified the eligibility of a conversion back to grazing land. So we have two and a half plots that were formerly tilled, conventional GMO corn and soy. And it was eligible for cover crops, and then that failed. So then we found out why it failed, because of the compaction and the history of disturbance that's getting transitioned to pasture. So that's two plots, but we're, again, going to get more specific. Each month we're going to upload and give updates like, okay, this is, the cows were on these fields, this was seed drilled, that's the end product. The deliverable for this year will be like the roadmap of how all those things happened. But we're working hand in hand with our consultants based on what shows up in the field. So it's almost like a call and response. Like the lady said, let the garden speak to us. It's okay, we do some activity and then we see what the response is. So our consultant recommended we do test strips alongside each area that's grazed by animals so that we mimic manuring. So in other words, there will be a test strip that is not available to animals. And that's where we're learning how to do the compost applications and the compost teas. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, so the treatments are still being defined. Is that what you're saying?
Well, we have a huge amount of organic material. So he's coming out, he's done the biological sampling for the soils, but now he's coming out beginning of June to train the staff on how to do it. So we'll be taking video on that. We'll be capturing all of our consultants' teachings. And then we're going to develop like a webinar, like the schedule will unroll hopefully in the next couple weeks. We'll say, okay, now we're going to have a compost workshop online, and we'll be able to show some of the things that we're doing, or, as we're experimenting. And then eventually this will lead to a see for yourself in the field workshop in the fall, but we're learning. So we're basically taking, sort of a approach of, okay, if we're a new set of people doing this for the first time, that's why we want your questions and we want you to participate in the webinars, because we want you to be a part of the end product at the end of the year to go, okay, what did work, what didn't work? Now's the next set of questions to keep going, keep investigating, beginners. It's really, second chance farmers and beginners. That's what we're trying to approach, because we found that was the most difficult thing to have a conversation in our community, was everybody is very uncomfortable with not knowing how to change. So we figured, okay, we don't know, but we'll try and see how that goes over,
Yeah. Thank you.
What type of organic material is available for composting?
We have, lucky enough, we're right next door to a horse farm that had a stockpile of aged horse manure. And we are still in the midst of, we have one last test, but we went through soil residue tests just to verify that there was nothing toxic remaining in them from all the treatments that horses receive. And so the last test we're doing is a glyphosate testing for it.
Okay. Did anybody check life in the compost? Biology in the compost, meaning bacteria? Fungi, nematodes?
Yes,
Okay.
just literally samples came 2 weeks ago. They were taken, and he's coming back next week to share the results. So that's, again, one of the things we hope to do is engage the community in our investigative results. Like, okay, we got the results back. What did we find? What's interesting here, and what's also an opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. This is great meeting. Thanks, Virginia. for
Yeah,
introducing
you're welcome.
me.
So glad you could join.
Yeah.
Christina, on that note of that last question and your response about sharing sort of updates and stuff, can you,
Yeah.
What's the best, is it the address that we're looking at on the screen, that was shared in the chat too, Operation Diversification, my Canva site? Is that the page to go to
Yeah,
and follow?
Yeah, and each one, Martha tried to make it as accessible as possible, right? So like if you click on, Northern Organic Farming Association, you should be able to go right to their homepage and contact them. Same with myself and, depending on if you want to have a direct farm manager question or a soil question. In general, Martha is the above the ground specialist. She's got a whole menagerie of animals, but basically right now it's a stacked operation of cow, calf, and chicken. But there's sheep coming, and she's got goats, and she's been at it for a long time. And then I'm sort of the below the ground gal in terms of the soil and learning about what we don't know, the impacts there that really were quite something.
Yeah, I think this is already, I've been excited about this project every time I hear about it. And having just watched that Common Ground movie or documentary that was mentioned, it was one of the, sort of takeaways for me was how important it is that we, share the information about how this work is done. So that people, like you're saying, can adopt practices that have been working. And that's very much a reflection of kind of the systems that we have today is, we've told everybody this is how to do it, and these are the tools and these are the resources. And unfortunately, organic management practices haven't been represented, to the level that they need to be to promote positive change. So this project is a pretty amazing example of a commitment to that path. So,
well,
thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you. I have to tell you that I should probably give you a little history. The owners wanted Martha to work with the existing farmer. Like they had a vision that the transition would be that easy. Like this person had been farming on their land for 30 years and they had a tragic loss in the family. Obviously that shifts context, and the younger kids said, if we're going to inherit this, we want it to be clean land, cleaner land. And that inquiry brought Martha to the table, and Martha thought they were going to start this journey of transition together in 2017. And that farmer said, "What are you talking about? I'm not doing any of the sort." And she said, "Oh, well, don't worry. I don't know a lot about it." So this is like a do-over. We get to do it with a community rather than that one person that said, even if he had all the support, he just wouldn't even think of it.
Yeah.
And thankfully, years later, he did come back and say, "I'm a little curious about these cover crops, and maybe I would dedicate some marginal land to some animals. I don't know. We'll think about it." But that's a slow change, but we want to talk to the people that are like, all right, I want to make more money, and all these inputs are costing me a fortune. I mean, that's Gabe Brown's attitude, is basically make more money, and he's getting a lot of people to pay attention. And now, tragically, with his circumstance through that movie, he's talking about it being a matter of life and death. So it's intensifying all of our work. Everybody on this call has been working towards, I think, this time to engage the community.
I think, Christina, you pointed out that just the way that people are uncomfortable with change, and even people who are sort of interested in change, it's a lot of risk, right? And it's a lot of unknowns. And what I feel like I found out with the RC&D cover crop and no-till trial is that the expressions cover cropping and no-till, they get thrown around like as if it's so easy, but it's really an art form. And it takes a time to get it right and to understand the combinations and the timing and, you know, all of it. It's not really like you just stop tilling and you start sowing a cover crop. It's really much more complicated than that. And so when people have peers that they can see and that they respect, and even that, you know, we saw in that movie, the other one that's just out, the Roots So Deep movie, where there were the two neighboring farms, and the one guy was like, yeah, I can't spend 90,000 on inputs anymore every year. So he transitioned, and his neighbor was like curious, but never really ever asked about how to do it. You know, so it's a whole thing about trust and relationships and risk, and it's when you can give people some support and a little bit of money to help them get over the risk, then it's really, really great.
That's what's so great about NOFA's programs, really. I mean, all of this is that, you know, that hand up money to just take that leap of faith, but that shared risk and shared reward is the theme, you know.
I'm gonna jump in here and offer anybody else who hasn't spoken up to, if they have any questions or comment, please do so now, because we're getting right to the end of our time. I'd like to welcome Joe too. If you'd like to say anything about why he's here, please welcome to.
Hey everyone, sorry, this is Megan Chauner. I have a question. I'm curious about the soil health testing that you're doing. You're saying you've already done quite a bit of testing?
Well, yeah, we sort of had the conventional testing that the second generation farmer did, which was chemistry. Then luckily our C&D cover crop trials enabled that second generation farmer to use the cash test, which is chemistry, biology, and structure. Right, but that's a costly test, yeah. And then we dialed it back and went with Understanding Ag's Regen Ag, because the farmer, Martha, liked the idea of just simple categories of minimum, moderate, maximum. You know, is the soil, what's the available nitrogen, what's the unavailable nitrogen? They just really had a simple way of taking a lot of complex things and saying your soil has all that it needs, you just don't have the biology to access it. So they have a different way of rating the test. But again, this is something we can unpack through this series because we want it to be affordable.
Yeah.
And what's really cool about our pasture expert and our soil expert, he's like, just let's learn how to look at it so you don't even have to have a soil test. You know, they love the idea of the shovels and getting out there and smelling it, and, you know, running water through it and doing all the basics, which Virginia, right? You know that you can empower the farmer to do this without even paying postage, you know?
Yeah, definitely. That's something that I've been really curious about and you know, hoping to implement some sort of programming around that on-farm soil health testing that's very accessible and cheap and everything that you're talking about. That's yeah, thanks so much.
Sure.
Okay, well, last chance for last comments, questions.
Do you know if any other NOFA chapters, like any other states, have you know, examples of how this has worked? Just for the people that are skeptical, or you know, to kind of learn from or use as examples.
NOFA Mass has done a lot of work around soil health. Let me see if I can pull anything up. They've done a lot of spectrometry work and a lot of educational events and actual tangible research projects. I'll see if I can dig it up and share out. Even if you just go to NOFA Mass, under their programs, they have a few that are dedicated to soil. I'll see if I can drum up any good resources and share them out.
Because then I feel like people would be less skeptical if they saw examples of how this had worked over time.
Yes.
Yeah, that is a big question. I mean, like big in terms of it's like, wow, how to take all the different stories and examples and condense it into a way that a person who's skeptical will be convinced.
Yeah.
And, you know, documentaries, I think, are really very effective, like the Common Ground one. There was a lot of things that were, you know, statements made and representations that, you know, could be discussed in greater detail. But as far as finding those examples of farms that are working using organic management practices and being able to, you know, specify that that's the quality, is kind of a tall order to make it, to present it in a way that will convince people who are otherwise unconvinced. But certainly a goal worth pursuing. And I think that's really what we're talking about, what this presentation was today, is it's sort of a supercharged example of, you know, providing that opportunity. And I'm going to make a pitch for inviting you guys to visit North Slope Farm. We're doing our annual summer solstice celebration. Sure. We'll be celebrating on Saturday, June 22nd. And you know, we've been building soil here for over 25 years, taking depleted, degraded, eroded farmland, and taking it from a percentage of organic matter to, in the case of our big garden beds, to like 12% organic matter, in just regular fields to like 7% organic matter, and seeing a great diversity of you know, plant life and undoubtedly soil life. We were part of the Massachusetts soil health testing grant that happened a couple of years ago, and was the technician was always excited to come to the farm because she was like, you know, I'm finding, you know, tracks of worms in the soil, and it's like, you know, like moving so much soil around. At any rate, hopefully you guys will come join us. Check us out, northslopefarm.com. Closer to the time, we'll have the details, but our contact info is there if you're interested. It'll be the day after, it'll be Saturday, not Friday, which is really when summer solstice is. But it's a time to come visit the farm, take a walk around, and hang out with other farmers. We hope you'll join us. Thank you so much, Christina, for your presentation. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, taking your time out of your day. And we'll see you out there, I hope, soon.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, everybody. This was great.
Oh, can you share a flyer about your event that's coming up, please?
I'm sorry?
You talked about your event coming up. Can you share a flyer for that?
Yeah, so it's let's see.
I don't know if you want to email it. Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
You know what?
Okay.
What will happen is I'll have Devin put out a community heads up. So probably the week, you know, the newsletter, the NOFA newsletter that comes out a week before the summer solstice, maybe the week before that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, I would love to be there. Thank you so much.
Cool.
Yeah, that's great. That's good to know. You have your own trials right there. All those trials and tribulations. You have good stuff growing.
You know, the thing we always, I'm sorry, the thing we always come back to is the profitability piece. So it's like, and it's hard because when you want to compare organic management practices versus conventional practices and who's profitable, it's like, you know what, there's so much other stuff that goes into profitability. So it's like, it's just hard to make a straight comparison. But, you know, that is what agriculture, you know, agriculture was formed to create products that were, you know, valuable to the community. And the concept is that if you produce a valuable product, you will be rewarded. Unfortunately, you know, we live in a sort of a strange economic environment where that isn't always a direct line. So we've got a lot to work on, not just
Yeah.
management practices.
That lot, like you're trying to reference, Devin encouraged us to have like a reference library because we've been listening to, you know, like Robert Kennedy just interviewed John Kempf, and this idea that the amount of a farmer who stewards his ecology should be paid, I think, I don't know how much money, you know, because of the benefit to everybody. So like reversing that whole economic factor of profitability it's all out there. So we're going to have a library of like sort of these podcasts and some of those key points. If people only have 5 minutes, shoot to this point, because it's really gets you to think like, wait a minute here, we got to reverse this whole thing. People that are feeding us and taking care of ecology, like, do you know how much they should be paid for an hour? You know, it's
The other thing I want to walk away from this, or I am walking away from with this, is Sharonda's comment, I think it was, about the kids will bring their friends.
Yes.
And
That's
it's not just
important.
kids, the people will too. So sharing the information, focusing on good, positive work will yield more. So thank you guys for your attention, and thanks for your participation. And I'll see you next month, if not sooner.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye. I'm going to call you, Kelly. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks.